Well, I want to ask you about the kind of the psychology of this fight, the main event, right? Like, it's really interesting because these two guys are at the top of the division, but one guy, should have had a title shot in Marlon. I mean, it was there, and it was kind of, I don't want to say taken away from him, but yeah, in some ways it was taken away from him, versus a guy in Cory that was kind of this hot shot prospect and then just got shut down last time out. So give me an idea of kind of what the mindset of these guys is going to be, and is that going to play into things here?
Well, I don't think there's much for Cory, really. He's got another top dog in front of him, and he knows that things didn't go his way against Aljamain, so he's got to go in there and prove himself. And I think, that was kind of a slip up on his part. He underestimated him for 1 second, and he took advantage of it. But for Marlon, yeah, it's tough. He has proven himself and was right there. Potentially should have been slipping into that title shot, but it didn't work out. And we talked to him in fighter meetings, and he seems really positive. He respects Jose Aldo, and he's a legend. And he felt like, for him to have that opportunity to go in there and maybe claim another title, so he doesn't really seem to be too bothered by it, which is good. So as far as his mindset coming into this fight, I think he knows that he's one fight away from potentially being right back into that picture.
Yeah, on paper it looks like it should be fun, right? And both guys are pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Where do you look at, what's the aspect of the game that you think is going to be the most key in figuring out who wins this fight?
I think the distance and the leg kicks for me, because Cory, talks about fighting at distance and using his range. He's very tall, bantamweight, but Marlon's so good at kicking the legs, and I expect him to really go after the calf in this one when you're fighting somebody that's so long and enjoys fighting at a distance. Well, one way to take away that distance is to attack that calf and really chop those legs down, and then go after the body, go up to the head, and he can use his boxing when Cory tries to maybe close that distance and make it a grappling match. So that's where I think things are going to really play out, and Marlon's just so physically strong too, man, as a bantamweight. But as the fight goes later into the fight, we're going to see that cardio of Sandhagen that's been on display in the past, and Marlon's so strong, so explosive, similar to his teammate Edson, that as the fight kind of trickles on, we see that power meter come down a little bit.
Yeah, dig it. And a lot of newcomers, a lot of debut fighters.
I'll say.
So has anybody caught your eye, whether it be on tape or in fighter meetings, or are there any fights that you're most looking forward to?
Yes, Bueller, the kid who's fighting the Brazilian, right?
Right.
That kid was amazing in the interviews, and he's so intelligent. And we talked about his, being an accountant and helping his teammates, and he doesn't remember anything, and he's kind of felt that life just felt like he was unfulfilled, and that fighting's only been the thing that he's been most interested in. So that kid really stood out in the interviews. But all these guys that are debuting, when you go and look at their fights and their personalities, I mean, they're fantastic. We had a lot of good interviews with these guys this week, and I'm excited to dive more into their past fights of what we can find. Some of these guys are easy to find, like the South African guy. Tons of fights, EFC or whatever that organization. There's that organization really shines over there. I feel like they put on a big production, so easy to find stuff on him. But the Bueller guy, we're struggling to find. So having a great interview with him really stood out, because as far as footage, there's not much out there. But he had a big 5-round fight recently against a UFC vet. So that proved that I think he's really deserving of this spot here on this card in Fight Island.
I've been asking everyone this, from your perspective as a fighter and an analyst, how much importance do you place on the corner for a fighter?
For me, a lot. I mean, obviously, I'm a guy who's jumped around and switched things up when I felt that I needed to refresh things and maybe get a new look on training. So for me, having just anybody in there wouldn't do. I need to hear certain voices, and I need to have those guys saying the right things right before I enter the cage to kind of get me in the right headspace. So for me, it's really important.
So without trying to throw him under the bus here, do you look at something like Mike Perry auctioning off a spot and think maybe the commission should consider stepping in, or do you think that opens a can of worms in itself as to who can be in a corner, or what's the take on that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's up to him, right? And it's up to the fighter, whoever they want to have in there, as long as they fill out all the paperwork and do their thing. I mean, that's his decision. he's a guy that maybe isn't going to listen to them anyway, right? That he's going to do his own thing. I don't mean that disrespectfully. Some guys are just going to ride off of their emotions and their instincts in the octagon, and Mike's definitely one of those guys. But, when he fought me, he had a good corner. He was out at, Jackson's and Winklejohn, and had Frank Lester in his corner, and that was who he was working pads with. And he listened. They were yelling out certain code words, and he was following those. So even though maybe it was frustrating him to do that, it beat me, and he had a good performance, and he was more technical, I feel, in that fight than we've seen him in other fights. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen if he gets Darren Till. Might be the best case scenario for him. So hopefully Darren is serious and chucks out that cash, but I don't see Mike letting that happen.
That's it.
Anything else?
Easy.
Oh man, short and sweet.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, love you
We
guys.
had you with the lengthy one last week.
Yeah, hey, it was good. That's what I was saying. I was like, I kind of answered all my questions from last.